Hey guys, welcome to Chaos Theory. My name is Nicholas Burial, and in this video we're going to continue looking at the textures for our materials so that we can try and get this object wrapped up. It'll still be quite a few videos because we still need the lighting and the rendering and all of that. But yeah, let's just get straight into it here. So we created the mesh. It ended up looking decent, so it's fine. Now we kind of need to look at the materials for the buttons. So I'll do a copy of the main material for, the black plastic we already did. And I'll call this play button. Because we have two buttons, basically. One of them is a play and a pause, and the other one is an audio mute. Well, not mute, but, audio levels. So, we'll just call this play button. That's fine. We can call the other one audio button, I guess. So there's a kind of a different ways we can actually do this, and I'm already regretting actually copying this material because the problem is that we have a map and we can load it. So if we go to maps, V-Ray, and then V-Ray bitmap, there are two ways of loading bitmaps when you're using V-Ray. The regular way, which would be maps general and then using a bitmap, but you can also go to V-Ray and then V-Ray bitmap, which is kind of the same, but not. It's V-Ray own way of doing it when you load bitmaps. So if we go to this and we find the maps, go to the play pause. So I have a map here. The V-Ray, sorry, let's just end the other one. The V-Ray bitmap actually looks, it's a lot smarter when you use HDRI maps and so on. We can look at that later on, but basically just, get used to using the V-Ray bitmap. It's a lot smarter and it'll help you out in the long run. So it's a good, it's a good thing to just get in your system and using it like that. So I made these materials or maps beforehand in Photoshop, and they're just black and white images, and they're made square, so this is 512 by 512 pixels. But they're made to be masks and not as much the maps themselves, because the maps, well, they're black and white and it looks pretty much the same, but the problem is that our background, the color of the diffuse isn't black. It's actually somewhat of a dark gray we chose, so it's 777 instead of 000, which this definitely is. So, and also, in other cases we might want it to change how the material would look like in the buttons themselves. What if they could light up, and all of these crazy things. So what I'm gonna do, instead of creating this material, which we already did, which is my mistake, is that I'm gonna do a different kind of material. I'm gonna create a V-Ray blend material, and this might look a little bit scary because it's got a lot of, it's got a base and a coat, a lot of coats, and it's got coat duplicates and blend duplicates and everything. But in theory, what we actually only need to do is that we take the plastic from before and use that as a base material, and then we create a different material, which will be the material for the inside of the buttons. So in this case, the light material. So we can do something like a pretty light color, but with the same maybe reflective properties as the other one, and use that as a coat. As soon as you drag it to coat itself, it'll go to coat duplicate as well. Don't worry about that. It's just V-Ray doing its thing. And then we'll take the map, which is a mask, and use that as a blend between the two. So now we're blending between two different materials based on what is white and what is black. So that's pretty neat. So that means that we can now go to one of our buttons, which is this button in this case, and we can apply this blend material. So this is the button map. This is, sorry, the play button. And if it's not showing up in your viewport, go to your mask material, press show shaded, and then select the V-Ray blend material, so you get this half red and half green highlight on the map itself, and then it'll definitely show up. So the problem is that this actually works quite fine because the box we used per default was a probably square box. Not a cube, but just the box itself, so the length and the width was the same. But we still might want to make this a little bit, smaller. It's a bit large for what I'm seeing here. So in order to actually change how this looks, we need to go into our V-Ray bitmap, and down in the bottom we find coordinates and create a map channel 2 for this mask. And then, before we do anything else, we'll go to the old UVW map, which is the mesh UVW, and rename it. So we can right click it and say rename, and then we can call it UVW mesh, so that we know that this is the one controlling how the mesh looks. Then we'll create a different UVW map. Go here. And you can see that this actually messes up the mesh itself because it's looking at map channel 1, which is the same as all the maps over here. So if you change it to 2, it only messes with this one. And it's wrong right now, but that's fine. We know that it's square, the texture itself, so we need to project it square, and we can just do this as a planar because we don't need it to look correct on the sides. We just need it to have whatever color there. So we'll change the gizmo, look at it from the top side, press F3, change the size of this. We can just use scale, which is fine. We can reset the X and then pull down on Y. Then just scale this until we have something that pretty much fits. Now, when we look at it, you can see that we have this here. And we can change the Z value so it goes up here, so it's a little bit easier to see what we're doing. So if I scale the gizmo down, you can see that at some point it'll start repeating because it's set to tile. So if we wanted this to be really small, but we only wanted to show it once, we need to turn off tiling in the material itself. It'll only show the map itself once. But this actually creates a different problem, which is so this is a pro tip for you guys. So if I render, you can see we get this issue where it defaults to white when it's not tiling, instead of defaulting to black, which is the outside of this. So this means it'll actually show code 1 instead of the base color when it's not tiling outside of the gizmo. This is a problem. So a way around this is a bit stupid, but we can, it'll work. We can actually change the base as code and go for the code so it's the base. So we're changing the maps around here. And then we can go to the maps output. So this map, the mask, and invert the colors. So we get the same result here. But now, when we render, it'll default to white, but we're inverting what is white and what is black, and thus it'll work. So we can scale this up until we have a size that we want. So if we start the interactive rendering here, maybe something like that. So that's cool. All right. So now we actually have how the buttons work. We can actually just take this and copy it. Oh, okay, that didn't go too well. We can take this and this map, and then we can, if it'll allow me to, hold down, wait, never mind. Just select these two, hold down Shift, and then drag them. Now we're getting a lot of, we can push on move children, so when I move this, it'll move the children with it. So this part here is a little bit, let's take this off. This is down here. Here, here. The middle here doesn't really matter, so we'll just move this out of the way. All right, so this material will then be the audio button. And then we need to change the bitmap. So the rest of it is the same as before. So we're using the same white-ish material and the same plastic material. So if we choose to create a darker or lighter plastic or whatever, it'll change for all of them at once. And this is, you can now maybe start seeing the smart part about using the slate editor instead of the compact editor, because we can actually see what is connected with each other. And we wouldn't be able to see that if we used the compact material editor instead. So the audio button now, we can change from this to the audio. Say open, and because we already set it all up, it's pretty much good to go. But we still need to change around the map channel, because now we need a different UVW map to change that one. So now I'll rename this to UVW play, and I'll create a new, I'll rename this to UVW audio. And I'll change this to map channel 3 now. And again, this is now in, actually we could, to make this a little bit easier, we'll copy the UVW play, right click and then paste, because then we get the same kind of, we get the same size and everything from before, because then we know the scaling will match up on the other one. Just need to change this to map channel 3. And we will need to change the, the length to 24, because I actually made that so it's, double the height of the width when I made this. So this is 512 by 1024 instead in pixels. So go to this map. This is already set to map channel 3. No, now it is. This is map channel 2, so that's fine. Go to the audio button. Go to our editable poly, select the right button and assign to our selection. Go up in our UVW so we can see everything. And make sure that the bitmap is show shaded in V-Ray blend. That'll update our viewport, so it should be fine. And now we can go to our VFB, check it out. And there it goes. All right. And the exact same thing we can do actually one more time for the Sonos logo out here in the front. So again, instead of duplicating now, I'll just go to the new UVW map, rename this, call it Sonos, and I'll change this to box. Why not? Because that's faster. I'll make it look at now map channel 4 because that's not occupied. Change the height to I can actually remember how I created that map, but we'll see in a sec. I can copy these two, go to the mask, select the Sonos logo. It's the exact same thing. It's probably 1-to-1. It's the most default way to create these materials, and it's probably what I did. Let's hope so. And we'll just move it out here in the front so we can see the rough placement of it. So now we can go to our editable polygon, but instead of selecting a whole button at a time, we can select these 4 polygons and add the material to those 4. And again, with the texture, if it doesn't show up when we go to here, you can see it just turns black. We'll go to the Sonos logo here and press the show shaded material in viewport and select V-Ray blend material once more. And this should update if it works. Why is it not working? We need to set this to map channel 4. There we go. Now we can change around the size of everything, because if we didn't have all of the other things, so now how big does this need to be? So the N is, probably roughly this size. I actually just Googled Sonos logo, and I found this straight away. So that was the way I found the correct font and everything. So just as a tip for you, if you want to recreate the same thing. And now when we start our preview rendering here, it'll look fine. So that's cool. It looks a little bit wonky here in the viewport itself, but that's fine. The last parts we could, be looking at would be to create maybe a small gradient for this, but, I think it looks fine. So we'll end it here and then say that we're pretty much done with all the materials. We could add a little bit of bump map to the black plastics, but we'll see that later on if it's necessary. When we start playing a little bit more around with the lighting and everything, we might need to make the plastic a little bit darker though. The nice part about that is that we have the exact same plastic material for all of them. So when I change one, it'll change all of them at once. So that's really nice. Yeah, that's a lot better. I have more contrast now. Cool. All right, so stay tuned for the next video. We'll be looking at the lighting for this and not just this test lighting that we have going on right now. We might change a little bit around on the materials themselves if we figure out that some of the parts are a little bit weird or whatever, but that's fine. And we'll fix it when we get to it. So stay tuned for more videos and I will see you next time. Bye.